Hey guys, Dave here, and today I just wanted to talk about the first episode of season 3 of The Flash. Now, there will be some spoilers ahead. Now, for a little background, for me, I've always really been big into comic books. First books I ever really remember reading were comic books. I always remember my mother telling me before bed, read something, and it would always be a comic book because I couldn't get into actual novels. Even to this day, I don't really read novels. Couldn't even get through the first Harry Potter book without being completely just tired of reading. But comic books have always kept my attention. I've always been into it, especially Marvel and DC books. Now, everything related to Marvel and DC I've always been a big fan of as well. Movies, TV shows, cartoons, things like that. And the Flash series was one of those things that I was very excited for when it came out. And first two seasons I loved. I thought were amazing. Kept my attention the whole time. And at the end of season 2, when you see the setup for Flashpoint, which was one of DC's biggest mini-series that they put together, and one of my personal favorites that I loved to read, I was so excited, and I was waiting patiently, reading up about it, seeing what they were going to do. Wasn't really too much information I could find. Speculating on how this was going to play out. I was sitting here going, oh wow, this could be a whole season worth of changes that they could do. They could change the entire Arrowverse if they did it right. They could have, I don't know, had Flashpoint permeate into every other show, like Arrow and Supergirl and things like that. Maybe not Supergirl because she was in a whole nother universe, but if you watch that show, then you know how complicated that was. But at least Arrow, and you'd see a change. You'd see different people, even if it wasn't even Arrow, even if it was just relegated to the Flash. I was so excited to see what characters were going to show up, who there would be, what happened, what they would be like. Now, if you read the comics, I didn't expect to see, I wasn't delusional. I didn't expect to see Batman be a crime-fighting vigilante murderer who wasn't Bruce Wayne. And then I also wasn't expecting to see an emaciated Superman who was being captive by the government either. But I wanted to see the people who were in the series and what they were like and who they were in this new universe that they threw at us at the end of the season. And I was so excited. I was like, they could do this for a whole season or at least half a season, get to mid-season, and then, go back and figure it out from there. And so, sitting down to the episode, it starts out fairly promising, at least, a little bit, with Barry, having his parents, still being a CSI, there being a whole new Flash out there, so he doesn't have to do it anymore. He can just be a normal kid who works for the police department and has his mom and dad there. He's talking to Iris, trying to get something going with her, even though he had her in his universe, but he didn't have his parents, so I guess he's trying to have his cake and eat it too, or some stupid shit like that. But from there, he is keeping Reverse Flash hostage, who in the book didn't even really know he was even. He speculated that he was there, but wasn't fully aware until almost the very end. I ever feel like, if I remember right, but no, here he's keeping him hostage, just like Zoom did to him. So I was like, okay, well that's interesting. Maybe Barry's gone off the deep end, and he's gonna become kind of crazy super villain, keeping Eobard Thawne, Reverse Flash, captive. And Reverse Flash is taunting him the whole time, telling him how, he's brought this hell on them, and how Barry's going to regret what he did, and he's going to be begging him to kill his mother and go back in time and fix everything. And I was like, well, okay, that's whatever. And so we start getting introduced to Flash's characters, like Cisco is a rich, billionaire techie who invents apps, and Joe is just a disgraced alcoholic cop who doesn't care about his job or anything. Iris seems to be the same, but yeah, she didn't really seem to be much different than in her own world. And then there was a new Flash, and he's fighting some guy who was so forgettable I don't even remember the villain's name, even though they kept saying it over and over. I don't know, I just didn't care about that villain. Spoiler, turned out to be Weather Wizard, but if you didn't remember him, it wouldn't have mattered one way or the other. And so apparently Barry in this time has all of his powers and all his memories and everything's good. In the books, he didn't have his powers because his mother and father lived, so he didn't need to be. He wasn't in that experiment and whatnot. Long story short, he still has his powers. He has memories. He can still run fast, but he chooses not to. And then finally, he starts getting involved a little bit. I guess missing his old life, kind of being the Flash, and tries to help this new Flash. And turns out it's Wally, who we all knew was going to be in there one way or the other. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, well, that's cool. At least get Kid Flash in there. Got everybody who's read the books knows Wally West is Flash. That's great. And he starts losing his memories. The more he runs, his memories start fading from his own world and being replaced with this new one. And I was like, okay, well, that happened in the book. It didn't happen that quickly, but sure, whatever. And then he gets everybody together in one room. Caitlin is just a baby eye doctor and not a scientist, but she still has the same science mumbo jumbo that she uses and solves everything like she usually does anyway. And then there were some funny scenes in there with Cisco, and Iris and Kid Flash work together as a team. Barry gets everyone together to fight this new threat, and so Barry is told by the Reverse Flash that the more he runs, the faster his memories fade. And Barry just ignores him and goes running off, trying to be a superhero again, and his memories start fading even more, to the point where he starts almost passing out and being killed. Until Joe saves the day. Find out that Joe and Barry never liked each other really in their world, and Iris and Joe and Wally are all reunited, but Wally's hurt, and so Barry, off of that one incident, Wally, if he has Flash's powers, could still heal and he'd get better. Barry is blaming himself like he always does, and then decides, okay, well, this has been too much, and I'm ruining everyone's life. Not really. Wally got hurt, but he's a superhero. He knew what he was doing. He rushed into the fight, and he has super healing, so you don't really need to blame yourself for that. And to make that big leap that you've ruined everyone's life is a little, what's the word? Teenager-ish, I guess? Like, somebody who works at CSI should be smarter than that, but either way, he feels this way, and all of a sudden decides, you know what, it's time for me to go back to my world. And that's when I realized they are doing this in one episode. Just one. So, that whole build-up, that entire break between Season 2 and Season 3, is now one episode. Just one. So, Barry breaks Reverse Flash out of his cell, and then they go back to back to the past, lets him kill his mother, and then he takes Barry back to his time and realizes everything's back to normal. Or is it, when Joe makes a comment that him and Iris aren't getting along, even though they made it seem like Iris was dead? At least that's what I thought would at least be a little more dramatic. No, it's just they don't get along. Boo-hoo. But and I just sit there and I'm going, all that was in one episode. The entire thing that changed DC, basically from that book on, DC has never been the same. Kickstarted the New 52 era that's still going on today. And they put it in one episode. Just one. And they didn't do anything with it. Like, what the hell happened? Did somebody just get scared? Were they just like, well, we can't do this over a whole season. What if it confuses people? You guys screwed around with time for an entire season. It wouldn't scare or confuse anyone. Just make a coherent story and follow it. But no, they just were like, screw it. We're out. We're not going to deal. And I don't understand that at all. And that was just my speculation. I haven't heard any interviews or anything from anyone, but basically it's like they took this big thing and just condensed it as tight and small as they could, and I just don't understand it. It's like Captain America Civil War. Everybody, that made a lot of money, a lot of people saw it, based on a huge comic-wide event. It'd be like if they just stuck that entire story in just one episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and barely had anybody from it in it, and just had just a little bit of mention of there being some disagreements. Like, they brought it to such a minuscule level that it didn't even matter. The fact that they even called it Flashpoint in the episode title was kind of just, I felt wrong. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm of course I'm interested in seeing what's going to happen from here. That's probably the point. But I feel like they wasted a huge opportunity to keep this thing going a little bit. Like, I'd love to have seen what that world's like, what Oliver Queen was in that world, or what Supergirl was in that world, because now she's a part of that world. If it would have happened. If not, still Oliver, Diggle, everybody from Legends of Tomorrow. If they would have shown up, and I would have loved to have seen who they were. This could have been a huge, very interesting event that they could have done. At least give it like 4 or 5 episodes at least before you go back. Then do your whole Iris doesn't like Joe thing. Like, I just don't understand why they took it out so quickly. But in my opinion, this was a very underwhelming episode that disappointed on a lot of levels. But hopefully they'll pick it up from there. And if you guys like this, leave a comment, and maybe I'll do the next episode next week or something. If you think I'm way off, just also comment that, you're a stupid nerd who's complaining on the internet about a TV show about a guy in red spandex. But, I had to talk about it a little bit. But other than that, you guys have a great time. Later.